Hey guys, welcome to Every Day at the Well, a UBC Women's Ministry podcast where we dive into the stories and experiences of women from all walks of life, just like the women at the well who encountered Jesus on an ordinary day. Here at Every Day at the Well, we're going to hear from some incredible women who, through their own unique journeys, point us to Jesus. Whether you're a busy professional working 9 to 5, a devoted stay-at-home mom, and maybe a student, or anywhere in between that, this podcast is for you. Together, we're going to discover how just our everyday lives and our stories, the mundane moments of our lives, can be infused with extraordinary and love that we receive from the Lord, and that we can share it together. We don't have to do this alone. So, if you're like me, you're going to grab a cup of really good coffee, the good kind, find a little cozy spot, or maybe you're in the car line for pickup, maybe you're on a run, maybe you're on a walk, maybe it's just the morning and you're ready to listen to something different. Either way, we hope you will join us for Every Day at the Well. Let's get started. Every Day at the Well is something that has been on our hearts for a while now, and so we are so excited to finally get this ball rolling with getting a podcast going. At our church, University Baptist Church in Fort Worth, we have such a heart for women and for missions and for things going on around us. But we acknowledge that there's things going on in our own lives and we want to talk about them. And that's kind of what this is all about. The why behind why we are doing this? Well, because we need to share our stories. We need to share our stories to draw each other closer to each other and to Jesus. We're not trying to be the new cool podcast. We are very well aware that your Instagram feed, your social media feed, all the things, YouTube, whatever you're looking at, friends, family, television, everything is in your head. You've got so many voices. So we're not trying to be competitive with all of the voices out there. We just want to share stories. And that is the heart behind At the Well, Every Day at the Well. But let me back up just a little bit to give you a little context and background on where this is all coming from. Back in 2017, a group of women from church, we all sat around and we talked. We gathered and we ate and we talked and we drank coffee and we said, what can we do to better serve the women in our church and in our communities? What can we do? And so we talked about this, we talked about that. We went around the table and one of the thoughts was women needed more places to talk, to share what was going on in their hearts, to share their stories, to not feel alone in the things that they were dealing with day to day, because we realized that we were all dealing with them at the same time, but dealing with them separately. So we thought about doing a mentor program, but we couldn't quite figure out the logistics. We're like, well, let's not do that. And plus, it's a little awkward to have to be paired up with someone that you've never met and spend the next year telling them everything about your life. So we thought, let's not go there. Let's not do that. So we thought, what if we met at the church once every month or once every 2 months, and we literally just got together and shared stories. And it looked different each month. Some months it was simply just a woman from our church talking about her life and what she's done and what she's maybe accomplished, maybe something really, really hard that she lived through, that she didn't think she would survive, and she did, and how God was her anchor and how she was able to share those stories with us, and they inspired us. Sometimes it was somebody from local organizations in the community. We had multiple nonprofits come speak to us. One of the nonprofits is called The Net, and it's in Fort Worth, and it works with girls and women who are trying desperately to escape human trafficking. This is a growing thing in obviously Tarrant County, but for sure Fort Worth area. And so they were able to give us the statistics, the problem, the roots of the problem, what types of girls were being pulled into this industry, but also just some tangible ways that we could partner with them and we could help. What little things could we do? We could write letters to them. We could send supplies. We could send little items that they needed on a day-to-day basis. And it was really hard content to hear, but really important content to hear. On the same vein as that, we also brought in Buckner and Gladney, which are adoption agencies local to the Fort Worth area as well. And they presented to us lots of statistics, lots of very eye-opening statistics that also were very hard to hear. Stories of children in this area. How many children are being removed from homes? How many children are currently able to be adopted because their parents' rights have been terminated? These were the stories we were being told. one month we had a panel of families who had either adopted or who were currently fostering children. And we got to learn more about what that looked like, pick their brains, hear their stories that were hard and stories that were absolutely beautiful, and stories of complete joy as well. So it was a really neat time. We even had local public schools, elementary schools, principals come in and tell us what they're seeing, tell us the need, tell us how the local church could partner with them and help them as we all were trying to just help these kids. And so we did lots of cool things. We even brought in a mental health professional, and she was able to talk to us about the truth about, again, more statistics about mental health right now, what this culture is seeing, what she is seeing in her practice day in and day out, a rise in anxiety, a rise in depression, a rise in suicidal attempts, and just the pandemic or the epidemic, that has become, and ways that we can sense it in ourselves when we're headed in that direction and ask for help, but even ways that we can help others when we see them going through that. So it was just a really rich time that we got to meet and we got to hear from one another. And it really was so empowering to all of us and inspiring to hear the stories of women who had gone before us and had gone through these big things. It truly was empowering to all of us. Well, then COVID hit. And when COVID hit in 2020, it kind of put a major stop to everything, as it did for all of us. But it really put a big halt on At the Well, was what we called it, At the Well at the time. And so years have gone by and we keep saying, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. We tried a few times and we realize in this culture these days, people are busy. It's very hard to add one more thing to your list to show up to leave your families, to leave work early and to grab something to eat and to show up. So we decided, let's try a podcast. So back in the spring, a group of us met together, our ministry team met together and said, let's try it. It's a little scary, I'll be honest, trying to put together a podcast for those of us who've never done it. And that's all of us behind the scenes here. No one's done this before. And so we're really excited to do it. But the whole why behind it is to get the stories out and to realize that we're actually a lot more alike than we are different, and to know more about how we can support one another. If we don't know each other's stories, it's hard to understand one another. But once you know the story behind the person, suddenly you have such a greater understanding of who that person is. Now, you might be sitting here looking at me. Well, you're not looking at me. You've got me in your ear. You might be sitting here thinking to yourself, all right, Jennifer, what is At the Well? What does every day at the well mean? What is this well? Is this well an actual physical well where you get water? Is this a abbreviation for wellness, like everyday wellness? Is this something to do with drinking more water? Like, what are we talking about? So let me clear that up. The name of this is called Every Day at the Well. And so the whole point is that everyday women, just like you and me, are going through everyday mundane moments of our lives. And the well is symbolic of a story in the Bible. And so let me just tell you that very briefly. If you're not super familiar with your Bible, and that is okay, there is a gospel. There's a book of the Bible. It's John, and it's in one of the Gospels. And it's a New Testament book, and it is about, it's got a lot of great stuff in John, but one of the stories in it is a story about a woman who is just living her very normal, probably boring, honestly, life, doing all the normal things. Like, think of us. Think of the moments when you get in your car, you turn the key, you drive to your local grocery store, you pick out the things you need, you maybe peruse, the sweets aisle, and you grab, for me, peanut M&Ms, and you check out, and you go home, and you put it all away, and you maybe pull some things aside to make dinner. Just a very normal, mundane thing to do, right? Well, this woman was on her way to get water, and probably for her family, maybe for her animals, who knows? But she was going to get water, and on a very normal day, she goes to get the water at the well, and that's where she meets Jesus. And in those moments of meeting him, she is completely transformed. Not physically, but mentally and in her heart. She had a new way of seeing the world. She was hearing things like, love others more than yourself, which is a very foreign concept and a very hard thing to grasp, very countercultural then and now. She was hearing things like, forgive, patience, joy in your sufferings, contentment when you don't have much. And so she was hearing these things spoken by Jesus and was really blown away by them. And so she decided she was going to go tell her friends about this man at the well. And so she went and she brought them back. And they then got to hear even more life-changing words from Jesus. And so that's what this is all about. This is about learning that we're going to share our stories. We're going to share our stories about things in our lives, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. But we're going to point each other to the Lord in all of it. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard, this different way of living, this countercultural love that Jesus offers. It's hard. And we don't always get it right. And so that's the other thing. I want you to know that this podcast is not for perfect people. In fact, it's the opposite. It's for those of us who can raise our hand and say, who in this room is a hot mess and does not know what you're doing? Boom, I would be raising my hand. We don't know what we're doing. We are all trying to figure out. We're taking one step at a time every day, just another step in what we think is the right direction. We're trying to do better at loving others. We're trying to do better at being patient. We're trying to do better at all of these things. And maybe you're in the place like us where we are. Maybe you are in a place where you don't feel like you know what you're doing either. Maybe you're in a place where you feel a little unseen, maybe unappreciated, maybe even hopeless. It's those moments in the mundane where we don't feel like we are doing what we are doing matters. And it's hard. Those are hard mental spaces to be in when you are doing the day in and day out work and you don't feel noticed and you don't feel seen and you definitely don't feel appreciated. And so that is what's important here, is because we're sitting here saying those moments and those stories that you're living, they matter. They matter a lot and they need to be shared. If a woman walking to the well like she did every single day in moments that she might have felt like didn't matter can have this moment with Jesus, this transformational moment that changed her life and that she was able to go tell others and change their lives, then it all matters. All of it matters. I also want to say, please bear with us as we do this first podcast. If you've ever done anything for the first time ever and realized you didn't actually know what you're doing, it's kind of a scary place to be. So we're going to do our best, okay? We're going to do our best. I'm going to be interviewing people. There might be other hosts on this podcast to interview people, and we're going to do our very best. But our heart is in the right place. So I hope you will see that. We really don't want to use this platform to just draw attention to ourselves. We don't want to pat ourselves on the back. We're not trying to say, we are better than you. We are holier than thou. We really are not trying to do that. We are fearful. We are anxious. We are worried. We're all kind of a hot mess. But honestly, we can't do anything without God. And that's why this is important to us, because we realize like every time we try to do it on ourselves, it doesn't go well. So we need each other to point ourselves all back to Jesus. So we're here to sit in these hard places with each other and realize that we don't need to be doing this alone anymore. One of the things that is special about a story is that it is relatable. If you ever watch a movie or read a really good book, there's probably moments in that story, whether it's the movie or the book, where you feel connected to the life of another. You have moments where you're like, I remember feeling like that before. I remember the first time that happened to me too. And it's this special moment of storytelling where we can suddenly kind of put ourselves in that story and say, gosh, that would have been hard. Man, and that empathy is stirred up in us, or you are reminded of a time where you went through that. And we have moments like that, and we realize that when we hear the stories of the other people in our lives and other women in our lives, we realize so much more that we're actually so much more alike than we're different. And that is so important, especially in this day and age, I'll say that again, to realize we're actually a lot more alike than we're not. And so we get to sit in that together and we get to sift it out together. And we can work through those differences, but realize like at our core, we're so much more alike than we thought. God is going to give us strength each and every day together. And so we hope you will join us, just everyday women, on Every Day at the Well. We cannot wait to get started. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you soon.